Whenever we talk about enterprise AI, our attention just snaps right to the agent, right? The little chat box, the thing making the decisions. But what if I told you that's actually the least important part of the whole setup? Let's dig into why that might just be the case. So let me ask you straight up, when you think about an AI agent system, what's the most critical piece? Is it the crazy powerful model, the reasoning engine? Well, your gut reaction here might be leading you astray. Because if you look at it from a systems point of view, you get this bombshell of an idea. The agent is the smallest part of the problem. And that one thought, right there, completely flips the script on how we should be building these things. And this brings us to what I like to call the agent illusion. It's this natural assumption that the thing we're interacting with, the agent, is the system. But honestly, that's not the whole picture. It's not even close. A much better way to define an agent is as a component that coordinates intelligence. Now pay close attention to that word, coordinates. The agent isn't the source of the intelligence, it's more like an orchestra conductor, pulling in intelligence from a whole bunch of other places. The best way to picture this is with an iceberg. The agent, that's just the tiny, visible tip sticking out of the water. It's the surface-level orchestrator. But it's propped up by this massive, hidden foundation of subsystems that are doing all the real work. And that foundation is what we're going to dive into. Okay, so you might be thinking, why can't we just unleash a super powerful agent and let it do its thing? Well, this gets right to the heart of why the whole idea of pure unchecked autonomy is almost always a disaster in a business setting. And this slide just lays out the conflict perfectly. On one hand, an enterprise absolutely has to have predictability, auditability, control, and safety. But pure autonomy, it's the exact opposite of all of those things. It's probabilistic, it's opaque, it's totally unconstrained, which means it is incredibly risky. These two things just fundamentally do not mix. So the bottom line is this: letting an agent run completely wild creates risks that are just flat out unacceptable, both operationally and legally. For any serious business application, it's a complete non-starter, period. All right, so if pure autonomy is the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's time to go below the waterline. Let's explore that hidden foundation, the systems that actually make enterprise AI work safely and reliably. The first, and maybe the most critical system, is knowledge. This is hands down the biggest bottleneck. Think about it. Enterprise knowledge isn't in some neat little file. It's scattered absolutely everywhere, across databases, documents, APIs, even buried in people's inboxes. Now, a lot of folks immediately ask, hey, can't we just throw vector search at this problem? And the answer is, not really. Look, vector search is fantastic for finding things that are kinda sorta related. But when you need absolute precision, when you need hard facts, especially for safety-critical stuff, it's just not good enough on its own. A really solid knowledge architecture has layers. You start with semantic retrieval, using vectors to find a list of possible candidates. Then you use structured queries like SQL or API calls to pull the authoritative facts. You layer on graph-based models to understand how all these facts connect. And finally, you wrap it all in metadata and policy filters to make sure the right people see the right data. And here is a huge insight. We love to blame the model for hallucinations. But more often than not, it's actually an information architecture problem. When you build a hybrid layered system like this, you're grounding the agent in fact. And that is the absolute best way to dramatically cut down on hallucinations. Okay, next step in our foundation, tools. This is super simple, but unbelievably important. An LLM can actually do anything in the real world. All of the actual impact, updating a database, sending an email, ordering a part, all of that happens through tools. And for an enterprise, these tools need to have very specific qualities. They have to be deterministic, doing the same thing every time. They need a narrow scope to limit any potential damage. Their inputs and outputs have to be strictly defined. You have to be able to observe exactly what they did. And they need to be idempotent, which is just a fancy way of saying if you accidentally run it twice, it won't charge a credit card twice. So if the agent isn't fully autonomous, then what's in charge? Orchestration. Think of this as the system's control plane, or maybe its air traffic controller. It's the thing that ensures every single action is done in a controlled, observable, and, super importantly, recoverable way. And what this shows us is that real-world enterprise systems are pretty much never pure LLM agents. They are almost always hybrid systems. They combine the amazing, flexible reasoning of an LLM with a rock-solid deterministic control of rule-based engines. You get the best of both worlds. And that brings us to the final piece of our foundation, observability. It's really simple. You cannot trust what you cannot see. For an AI system to be truly trustworthy, there are 7 key things you have to be able to monitor all the time. And here they are. You need to see the inputs, the path it took to get information, what tools it used, and the model's rationale for its choices. And you also have to track all the errors, the system's latency, and of course the cost. Without all this visibility, you're completely flying blind. So, all of this leads to one single conclusion. Architecture is everything. The goal here is to build an iceberg with a stable and massive foundation, not a snowball that just gets bigger and more chaotic as it rolls downhill. So here's the crucial thing to remember. The agent component, it's replaceable. The specific large language model you're using today, I promise you, it will change. And if you focus only on the agent, you are locking yourself into a painful cycle of constantly having to rebuild everything. Which, of course, brings us to the final, most important question of all. If the agent and the model are always in flux, what's the part that actually provides lasting, enduring value in an enterprise AI system? The value is in the foundation. It's that robust knowledge system you painstakingly build. It's the curated ecosystem of tools. It's the smart orchestration logic. It's the context models specific to your business. And it's the governance framework that keeps it all operating safely. This is the stuff that endures. This is the real asset. So let's end on this thought, because it really says it all. Enterprise success with AI is not a question of how intelligent an agent can be, but how well the system around it is designed to endure. It's a fundamental shift in perspective, from focusing on the flashy agent to focusing on the enduring architecture that powers it all.